17, 2023. We'll have a call to order.
President Ferguson,
Here.
Vice President George,
Here.
Councilmember Fagan, Councilmember Cresser. Here. Councilmember Stevens.
Here.
Mayor Gerard.
Here.
Borough Manager Snyder. Here. Borough Solicitor Harper.
Here.
All right, I guess we'll stand to our Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilman Stevens, you do our invocation?
Almighty God, our Heavenly Father, we thank you for blessing us with this day and for your endless mercies and your countless blessings on our community. We are grateful for this opportunity to serve our community, and we ask that you will give us wisdom as we work on its behalf. Pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. All right, we'll start with item 1, approval of the meeting agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda for May 17th, 2023?
Second.
I got a motion from Councilwoman Cresser, a second from Councilman Stevens. Any questions, changes, or amendments? All in favor? Opposed? There are none. All right, item number 2, approval of the meeting minutes. Can I get approval for the meeting minutes for April 19, 2023 regular meeting?
I'll make a motion.
I got a motion from Councilman Gerard, a second from Councilwoman Cresser. Any questions, changes, or amendments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. All right, item 3, public input. I would invite anyone in the crowd, but there is no one here, so I'll acknowledge that no one is here. Maybe someone will come for our ordinance in a little bit later.
Live stream?
Yes,
Yeah, so if they want to, they can.
okay. And we can do that, right, Kate? So anyone that's got comments live streaming or online? Okay, all right. Sorry, did anyone send anything in?
Oh, good.
Okay, sorry, that was me. That was me. So. All right, we'll go to item 4, announcements.
Next council meeting, June 14th, workshop regular meeting at 7 p.m. here in council chambers. Borough is scheduled to meet Wednesday, May 24th at 8 a.m. here in council chambers. Zoning hearing board is scheduled to meet Wednesday, May 31st at 7 p.m. here in council chambers. The Hatfield Museum Historical Society is scheduled to meet Tuesday, May 23rd at 7 p.m. at the Hatfield Volunteer Fire Company. The next planning commission meeting is scheduled for June 12th at 7 p.m. here in council chambers, and the borough offices will be closed Monday, May 29th in observance of the Memorial Day holiday.
All right, any questions? If not, we'll go to item 5, public hearing for ordinance number 550, chickens, amending chapters 2 and 27. And I'll turn it over to the solicitor.
Sure. I'd like to open a hearing on the ordinance regarding chickens. I am going to give a brief explanation of it in legal terms, but the committee worked really hard on this and they may have things that they want to add to it. Currently, borough ordinances prohibit the keeping of livestock and farm animals in the borough. However, that would prohibit poultry, chickens. Okay, so what this new ordinance does is it leaves that section in there, but it says except as permitted below for chickens. And then when you get to the part about chickens, which is below, the committee did a very good job of setting forth where and when and how you can have chickens in the borough. And you and they're limited in the numbers, they're limited in where they can be, and they have to be kept in an enclosure, a secure fenced in areas. There are a number of things that they have to do. Okay, it also outlaws any public slaughter of any chickens. I don't know if you want to do that, but sometimes that happens, so that's outlawed. Now, the committee also requested that this be allowed only in the residential districts of R1, R2, and R3. So this was advertised as an amendment to the zoning ordinance, in addition to the fact that it's part of your general ordinances for what what lawyers would call the police powers of the borough. Okay, so the ordinance does two things. It adds a permitted use to the R1, R2, and R3 districts if you want to have chickens at your house. And then it tells you how you have to raise them, basically, or how you have to do it. So that's the basic outline from a legal point of view of the ordinance that is before you this evening.
Madam Solicitor, can you, for the record, talk through what is R1 and R2 and R3, what those mean?
Right, those are residential districts in the borough. For example, R1, R2, R3 is actually most of the borough.
Mhm.
You have other districts, you have a core commercial district. That's not part of this, although it could be an overlay on some of them. It's the idea is not to have them running around Main Street or Broad Street. Okay,
Mhm.
chickens, they get loose. The idea would be if people want to have them as a pet or a hobby or something they want to do on their residential properties, and they're in a residentially zoned district, then they can. Okay,
Okay.
they have to look at the zoning map. Also, the ordinance does require a permit, so if anybody's listening and they want to have chickens, they have to come into the borough and apply for a permit. And then, when they apply for the permit, the zoning officer, the code officer can check the zoning map and make sure they're in the right place. Okay, also requires that you have some training with how to deal with chickens. You either have to take a course or know what you're doing some other way. It's because, they're live animals and not all of us grew up with chickens at home. So we all need you need to know that before you undertake to have chickens in a neighborhood.
Mhm.
That's basically it.
Okay.
I don't know if the committee wanted to add anything to that or not.
I'll just say, it's been last couple of years of growing interest has been expressed in having chickens. And so we think this ordinance, while allowing chickens, also hopefully does not create any problems with neighbors as well. So we think this is a good compromise to allow chickens without disturbing neighbors.
Right, and I should have said that. It doesn't allow roosters.
Right. Yes.
Because in general, when chickens disturb neighbors, it's because the rooster's making too much noise too early in the morning. We don't allow roosters.
Correct.
Michelle, do you have anything in?
I just think it was a nice project to work with you with. I
Mhm.
mean, we went through a lot of different ordinances. And I think we picked the best fit for the Heckman Borough.
I agree.
I just have one question on this, and that is the prices for eggs have dropped considerably since the last year and earlier this year when they were close to $7 or $8 a dozen. Looking down the road in the event things go south again and prices start rising, we may be approached about variances. I'm thinking to see, hey, well, I know you only allow X number of chickens, but would it be possible for our where we live to get maybe another half a dozen we would be allowed to do. What would we have to do to consider a variance like that? Would it be similar to like a zoning variance, or how would we get around that? Can we refuse outright, or we would have to review it if somebody approached us?
That's a very good question. And here's the good news. Because we added it to the zoning ordinance and the language is specific, it says, I'm just going to read the zoning parts at the end. Keeping of domesticated chickens in accordance with section 2-101.3 in R1, R2, and R3, we converted it to a zoning ordinance. So that means normally on a police power ordinance, somebody would come in here and ask you to amend the ordinance because you don't have the power to grant variances to some and not to others. But on a zoning ordinance, if they go to the zoning hearing board and convince the zoning hearing board that whatever they're asking for is reasonable and doesn't change the character of the neighborhood, which is one of the standards that the zoning board applies, then they can get it on an individual basis. Each zoning case is individual. So that problem would be the zoning board's problem. So I actually think we just lucked out on that. We weren't originally going to put it in zones. We were just going to allow it anywhere. And by adding it to the zoning ordinance, we also provided a path for getting a variance.
And also, I believe in the future, council could also amend the ordinance if such as the number of chickens permitted. Seeing how this version pans out, and if there's no problems with what we have now, maybe we couldn't, it could be increased sometime in the future and provide people the opportunity to have more chickens. We'll see.
That's right, and if you got a lot of requests for variances, then you would consider changing the ordinance to meet the requests. On the other hand, we haven't heard a word about the beekeeping ordinance in Japan. That was controversial at the time.
Mhm.
So-
Okay, thank you.
So I'm supposed to ask for public comment. I know we are live streaming this, but there is no public here that would, be commenting. And did we, Kate, did we receive any written comments?
No. No, it
Say that louder. No?
No.
I also want you to know it was advertised twice in the newspaper. Because it's zoning ordinance. A regular ordinance only has to get advertised once for 7 days, but we did advertise this one twice because it's the land use zoning ordinance governed by the municipality's planning code. And so we should make the proof of publication a part of the record by attaching it to the minutes. Okay, so that's clear as well. So that's all you have to do on hearing unless council has questions or wants to comment further.
I don't have anything else.
I don't have anything. All right,
Okay, great.
we will close this then. All right. Thank you, everybody, for that. All right, we'll go to item 6, reports and correspondence with our monthly year-to-date reports.
The monthly year-to-date report was in your packets for April, just noting revenues coming in around $412,000 and expenses $510. April, we had some, like, a little bit higher than normal amp bill, and then had some sewer items purchased for upcoming projects. So those were some increases. A lot of times when we're getting ready for paving or ADA projects, we'll have a little bit of an increase in materials and things that we're going to do in-house to prep for the projects. And getting ready for the spring and summer months with, maybe the recycling containers that we purchased, even though it's budgeted, we might have had those expenses before we get some revenues. And I do not believe that includes any of the tax revenue for April that came in yet. We had just received that from the tax collector, so that will be a show up for revenues in May.
Yeah, it's the first time since we've been tracking it that we're actually on track. So it's the first quarter and we're 25% of expenses and revenues. So
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Yeah. Thank you for that. Any questions? All right, if not, we'll go to item 7, new business, Comcast franchise agreement.
All right, let me start and then Jamie can add to it. You paid a law firm in Pittsburgh, isn't it?
Correct.
Along with a bunch of other municipalities, to do a deal with Comcast. And they were able to work out an agreement, and it should be in your packets. And tonight you were given the Cohen Law Group's legal analysis, which is attorney-client privilege, which is why I didn't get it early. Okay, so that's their I think the fee revenue is something that changes, not based on the contract. In other words, people are now getting their what they watch at night and all those things differently from cable. And so this is going to be dependent on users. In addition, Hatfield's a little different than some places because you have your own poles. So we have always gotten paid for pole attachments, and we need to add that to this. I don't want you to take action on that until we get the pole attachment added.
Mhm.
And then finally, they do offer a certain number of free services. And I think the only one we actually use is the firehouse,
Public Works.
Public Works.
Yeah, we have free internet service and cable service at Public Works. And we currently pay for the municipal building and Cherry Street, the jailhouse, which houses our campuses.
Right, so we want to make sure that the exhibits reflect that. Now, we don't use a PEG channel, a public interest governmental channel. Because quite frankly, the computer does it. you know, and it's just as easy and maybe even easier to do it this way. But I do think we have to, confirm that Public Works is still getting its, cable and its, computer service. Because Cohen didn't confirm that.
Right.
So we have to add that to it. And then I think, believe it or not, a majority of the contract is customer service oriented. So people were coming to our meetings and complaining, Comcast is down again. You know, they have a certain amount of time to react to complaints. They have, and you can pass the complaints on to them or the consumers can. And they have to offer a certain amount of resolutions and things like that that happen that way. And pages of this contract deal with those customer remedies and customer issues. I don't remember that we're getting too many of them with regard to Comcast. You know, we don't have a problem that way. But if we did, we would have the ability to go to Comcast and say, hey, Mrs. Smith on Broad Street says her cable service keeps going out, fix it. Okay? Because we earn fees based on users. And that's only fair. You know, if you want the franchise, you better give us the service. So most of the contract deals with that. If you don't want to read the whole thing before you have to take a vote on it, then do at least read the Cohen Law Group's analysis. Okay? If you have any questions, you know, we can let me know at the next meeting. And in the meantime, we'll be working out the poll attachment and making sure that the Public Works building gets its Comcast service still.
Yeah, I'll add, we worked with the Montgomery County Consortium on this, so a bunch of municipalities went in together, so we got a great deal through Cohen, who was also did our Verizon franchise. And really to date, the only complaints that residents have made, and it's about either service provider, is the taxes and fees that are associated with their service, which that is out of the control of Hatfield Borough. That's just state law for taxes and fees and service that Comcast or Xfinity would put on your account for housing a router at your house or those type of things. I haven't heard any service fees where someone wants Comcast at their house, but they're unable to get it, or any complaints like that.
And is there any thought about any additional free space or space we'd want to include free service in, like public parks or anything like that? Or I don't know if we've considered anything like that.
It's not exactly free. And I think for a while we had it here at Borough Hall, or what function is Borough Hall, but then I think we discovered there was a cheaper way to do it. You know, it's either a deduction. Contract in front of me.
Yeah.
It's a deduction from what they'd otherwise pay you, or you have to charge more to the residents. So, you know, it's not worth it.
Okay.
In other words,
Okay.
I guess. I mean, Jamie may have a different
Yeah.
opinion, but that's what I thought.
No, there's 3 options that you can choose in part of this contract, which is talks about your free services for your buildings. If you want all your buildings free, then you would get less franchise and more for your residents. If you choose one, how it evens out, or you can deny all free and then you could have more in your like franchise fees. So I know currently our Comcast bill runs around, which is on the bill list, $116 for one location and $113 for another. So that's how much we pay monthly for the services.
Okay.
I think you'd have to weigh that out with what we're breaking in franchise fees now. Used to be on the 30s, and I think they're now down in low 20s. I think we might have budgeted 20 some this year. Just as Kate said, people are going to those streamers and they're not having services anymore.
Right.
They're not paying for cable, so we're not getting the revenue from the franchise.
Okay. No, it's just a question. I didn't know if it was worth it. They've offering that or anything. Sounds like it's not. So.
Right, but that is something that we wanted to think about before we had to take a vote on it. So if you feel differently after looking at the summary,
Yeah.
let us know.
The 3 ways are listed in here that how you could take your service.
Okay.
It's,
But it's not exactly free.
Right,
That's the point.
Right. They're getting
Yeah.
it from somewhere, right? Yeah.
someone's paying for it.
Someone's paying for it, right.
Quick question on the fees we're getting through the service. The fees, are they based on, you said they're based on usage, but how is that measured? Is that on a percentage basis or is that an individual basis? In other words, would it be in the contract that if our services, if you, the number of residents using the service drops by, say, 25%, then we're gonna lower the fees.
Right,
That we're
it's a
paying you.
percentage of the revenue they're bringing in.
Okay,
So if people drop Comcast and go with Verizon or go with nothing, we just get a drop.
okay, but is it on an individual basis or is it set on like the percentage basis, like 10%, 15%, whatever?
I think it's 5% of everybody.
Yeah.
Together.
Okay,
I don't
so
know.
it's if it's like,
So
Would
if
be-
one of you
would-
drops out and then somebody else picks it up, then
right,
you probably
that
won't
would
have a
wash,
drop.
but I mean, would it be like incremental? In other words, if you drop 5%, you get so much less. If it drops down to 10%, so much less more than
It's the
that,
same percent.
same percent.
Yeah, it's just, we get less money because there's fewer users. And in a way, it's free money. You know, because the borough doesn't have to do too much to service it. That's why actually we wanted to get the pole attachment fee in addition, because that is our electric poles. So if you're gonna use our electric poles, you should pay. And Verizon gets to use its own poles. They have a deal. They have their own poles, AT&T, whoever owns it, so. We don't get any pole attachments from them usually.
Any other questions? All right. If not, we will go on to item 8, old business, the SEPTA lease agreement.
The SEPTA lease agreement that's in your packets is the same SEPTA lease agreement that was in the workshop packets. I had reached out to SEPTA, copied Kate on the email asking them for a clean lease, with the adjustments that we asked before, just some rewording and also
The
talking
dates and-
about dates, and said the next time that we meet was June 14th. But we were also interested to know if they would execute the agreement before we would execute the agreement. And I have not heard back, and I don't know if Kate has heard back.
I have none.
So that's kind of where we stand. I'm waiting for a clean lease, and also the question if, I think Kate, you brought it up, like, would they be interested in executing it before we did?
Right, only because I don't think the SEPTA board meets as often as you meet. So I thought, maybe they got it on their agenda and got it done and sent it to us, then we could. talk on
Okay.
it. But, we can take action on it if they prefer us to go first.
Okay. Would
But
we,
I expect it to be on in June, at least to look at again. If we cleaned it up and they signed it prior, I mean, we can certainly consider voting on it in June.
okay,
But, I'm just waiting for them to give us a clean copy.
okay,
And especially, I think the solicitor mentioned last meeting, we never want to sign anything that has blanks in it. So just
Right.
trying to fill those in.
okay.
Right.
So we'll still follow that course. We'll wait till we get the numbers, get it filled in, they'll sign, approve it, and then we'll draft it. So, okay. Any questions?
If they haven't signed it by June 14th, we should probably take action on it. The only reason I say that is because we know they have another person interested in that site to use for like storing junk with the railroad. So if they haven't taken action on it by June, I think we should and then send it to them and say, here's the deal. But
Okay.
we have to get a clean version to do it.
As I say, as long as we have a clean version, we can certainly take action on it if you want to.
Okay,
I don't know if it's their policy that we would have to sign before them. I just asked because we asked last meeting. It doesn't hurt to ask.
okay. Yeah, let's find out and then we'll talk about it again. All right, item B, ordinance 551, regular use of consumer and display fireworks.
Okay, after the committee went with Lieutenant Jane from Hatfield Police, we went back and reworked the ordinance. We were trying to say where you could have the limited use of fireworks in the borough. And basically, she thought it would be better if, it's almost impossible to find a place in the borough that's 300 feet from an occupied structure. Anyway, like if you're 300 feet from your neighbor, but you're standing on your own porch, you're not 300 feet from an occupied structure, because, we're all so close. So the current version of the ordinance basically prohibits it. Okay, remember we had we try to think, well, should we allow it on 4th of July? Well, should we allow it on New Year's Eve? That kind of thing. And now it's basically prohibited, okay? We also defined, put the definitions in from state law. Because you can have sparklers and stuff like that. That's not a violation. It's just those projectile things like cherry bombs and Roman candles and stuff like that. That's prohibited. Now, we previously allowed fireworks in public parks if the borough manager in writing has consented. So if somebody wanted to have I don't know, let's just say somebody was celebrating their 100th anniversary and wanted to have a party in the park, then you could still allow that, but usually those are done by professionals. And certainly the borough manager could make sure it was done by a professional before granting a permit. Okay, so this one basically, and the reason for this is that state law has changed and now these fireworks are going to be much more available and are permitted unless they're prohibited. So we're going to prohibit them. Okay, see how that goes. That's the idea here. Anybody from the committee want to add something? A lot of work on this one too.
I think you pretty much covered it, and your definitions are great. I mean, there's no way around them now.
Right, I used the state definition so that first of all, it's easier for the police to prosecute, although they did tell us that they would normally give you a warning. Hey, you're not allowed to have them, before they did anything. So it would be easier if everybody's working from the same playbook. Okay.
And how does, just out of curiosity, how does this, so the state of Pennsylvania change what they're allowing? What are they allowing now? Just out of curiosity.
Well, a few years ago, they didn't even allow the sale of fireworks in Pennsylvania. Then they allowed the sale.
Anything, even the
anywhere.
projectile stuff,
Right,
or anything that wasn't a projectile, anything on the ground.
right,
Oh, really?
right.
Okay.
And then they allowed the sale of fireworks. And then the borough and everywhere else had an issue with, and I actually saw one today. I guess it's for Memorial Day. Pop-up tents where guys
Mhm.
pop up with a tent and then they sell fireworks at your gas station. That doesn't strike me as a really good idea in any event, but you do see them all over. I see them, So then we passed an ordinance saying that you need conditional use before you sell fireworks, which is going to get rid of those pop-up tents because those guys are never going to be around 6 weeks.
Mhm.
Advertise conditional use, get it on like that. That was good. Then the state law changed again, and not only can you buy or sell fireworks anywhere in Pennsylvania, you can set off fireworks anywhere in Pennsylvania. But that law does include, a term that municipal governments can regulate them, and particularly where you're in a borough where everybody's pretty close, and where it's very hard to find a place where you're not within 300 feet of an occupied structure or a person, like a person walking down the street or
Mhm.
something like that. Interestingly, there's also a setback from chickens. Isn't that hard to believe? There is. So, now we're gonna pass a chicken ordinance. I think it's pretty easy to say that there's no place in the borough that you can actually set off those more volatile fireworks without being in violation of the 300-foot setback.
Any other questions? All right. If not, we will go to our action items. We'll start with action item A, motion to consider ordinance number 550, amending chapter 2 animals and chapter 27 zoning of the Code of Ordinance of the Borough of Hatfield, providing conditions for the keeping of chickens.
So moved.
I got a motion from Councilman Stevens, a second from Councilwoman Cresser. Any other questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Motion passes. All right, item B, motion to consider advertising ordinance 551, regulating the use of consumer and display fireworks for public hearing to be held on June 14th at 7 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
I got a motion from Councilwoman Cresser, a second from Councilman Gerard. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. Motion passes. All right, item 10, can I get a motion to approve payment of the bills? Or I'm sorry, yes, motion to approve payment of the bills, sorry.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
I got a motion from Councilman Gerard, a second from Councilwoman Cresser. Any questions, changes, or amendments? Sounds like not. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. Motion passes. All right, can I get a motion to adjourn for executive session where we will discuss real estate personnel matters?
So moved.
Second.
I got a motion from Councilwoman Cresser, a second from Councilman Gerard. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, meeting is adjourned. Thank you.